So the film's having its 10-year anniversary screenings in LA. Charlie, you've been at those. At the same time of those screenings, it's having its first release ever in the UK, which is an amazing thing to be having a new release at the same time as a 10-year anniversary. Charlie, how does it feel to have all that going on now?
Yeah, I mean it's great. We get a little bit of a bump every Christmas because we're a holiday movie, which is which is kind of fun and nice, and which Kentucker will test by. Kind of every year we get a cycle, but this has been a really kind of big bump this year. I don't know if it's because of the UK or 10 years or what, or it almost feels like maybe a new generation of film goers are discovering it and younger people, which is really cool. But yeah, I mean, at the beginning, it felt like our success was because there were lots of people who just really loved the film and would champion it and kind of push it in different directions. And for some reason, we just never kind of found that person in the UK, I think, until now.
Like I was trying to work back the timeline of events on this. So it's 10 years since the film came out, but the research process for you that started, is it 4 years or 3 years before that? So when did you actually start thinking about a film about a Christmas tree salesman?
Man, yeah, that was probably like 2009, maybe I started thinking about it. And then the first year I think we opened it might have been 2010. So I might have started thinking about it even earlier. But we sold trees for 2 years before making the film. So we shot the film the third year the tree stand had been running.
And then Kentucky, how did you get roped into all of this?
I knew the casting director, Eleanor Hendricks, was a friend of mine, which helps get cast in a movie, and seems to be maybe the only way I can really get cast in a film is knowing the casting director. Um, but and I knew that Sean Price Williams was shooting it, and it was going to be shot on film, and I had just moved to New York and Brooklyn, and I was excited to be a part of what Sean would shoot and what Eleanor would cast. And I didn't know Charlie, but I quickly came to appreciate his demeanor and his script and his story and the fact that he was really dedicated to this project and had done the research, running his own Christmas tree stand. So I mean, all the elements just kind of came into play, and it just felt like a very obvious fit. And I auditioned for it, and I auditioned with Hannah Gross, who was the lead, and she was already cast, and it felt like I was hoping that there would be suitable chemistry and that it would feel right with us, and I guess it did. And so they brought me on, and it was yeah, went from there.
Nice, because I mean we've touched on it a bit. I don't think many people maybe coming to the film know that you're essentially having to play a role that your own director method acted as himself for 2 years prior to the film's production. So, Charlie, you said you run a tr Christmas tree stand, but like you literally doing the job in the film for multiple years. Like, tell us, like, what was the day in the life or the month in the life that you were actually doing back then?
Yeah, I mean, on the surface, I guess it is kind of the same, but my apartment was 3 blocks away. I was not heartbroken and depressed, and I was having fun and selling trees and kind of, getting in touch with the community and giving work to some of my artist friends who needed some, extra pay. So it was the experience of selling trees was nothing but fun and exciting, unlike what it is for Noel's character.
Yeah, I do love that kind of the DIY attitude that I've read from you in interviews where you're talking about this idea that making the film would be simple because, I'll have the tree stand, I'll sell the trees, and that'll give me money to make the film.
That's rare for an indie film or an indie film to establish that level of commitment, and I think that's what makes the film special is you can feel the lived in quality. You can feel the dedication and the expertise uh, in this particular field. I was watching. I was dipping my head in back into the film just to prepare for this talk, and I was struck by how many trees there were on set to sell. And not only did he research the film by preparing by running the shop 2 years before, but as we were filming the actual film, it was an active Christmas tree stand that was selling trees. And so in between takes, I would be selling trees, or Charlie would be selling trees. And I was just struck by how impressive that was that Charlie had kept the stand open and running while we were filming, and that they actually had to be sold uh, during production.
Well, you can totally feel that authenticity because like there are customers that are in the film that are real life customers that ended up there, right?
Yeah, there's a couple. Yeah. And Eleanor sometimes would just kind of wander around the block, like go to the bar, see who's there. The guy at the beginning with the wreath was someone she just met at the Palace Bar across the street. And he was sitting there, and they started up a conversation. And she was like, "Hey, I'm making this movie across the street. Like, you want to come be in it?" But yeah, I wanted to say one thing about what Kentucker was just saying, which is from the beginning, we were definitely thinking about like how can we extend the kind of the production value beyond the budget. And I knew part of the idea of having the Christmas tree stand was like, what would the Hollywood version like if for this? What would the Hollywood approach be to this film? Okay, we got to buy all this stuff, the scenery. We got to create this set, right? It might not even be shot in December. It might not even be shot on location. Like you got to get the 300 trees, and then as you shoot, okay, are we on day 4? Okay, that means we need like 3/4 of our trees here, but we're out of order. So now we're on day 5, but that's a different part of the script. So bring the trees back, right? Like it'd be all these added complications to actually doing it in a way that is like more in line with how movies are normally made. So yeah, like we shot in order, which helped, right? So we're shooting in order. So as we're shooting, Kentucker's hair is growing out and trees are thinning out. And it was like we didn't have to do anything for that. There was no art department that had to, okay, strike 5 trees, because I had a guy just selling the trees one by one, right? And we'd come back on Monday after the weekend and like, kind of assess okay, how many trees are left now, right? And it definitely got a little creative because if we missed a shot or something, it was like, okay, there were supposed to be a lot more trees in the shot, but we're only down to like 10 trees. Like, what do we do? And I do remember at the end there was a little bit of shuffling, like grabbing trees and putting them in a shot, and then like, only shooting this way because there were no more trees left or something.
Well, what I really love about the film is the kind of the atmosphere of it that you get straight away. And there's a nice quote from yourself in an interview where you just said, "We just wanted it to feel the same way a box of ornaments feels when you pull it out after a year or 20 years. It just feels warm." And, it's 10 years old now. It could have been made this year. It could have been made 30 years ago as well. The only real difference is maybe someone's got a flip phone or a smartphone. Although I think there's a flip phone and a smartphone in this film. So I just want to talk about that atmosphere and the approach to that.
Yeah, I think that timelessness was something we were going for straight from the beginning. You see that with the music, right, with the lights and the just kind of the look. Yeah, we were. I mean, Kentucker knows this. Filmmakers. I mean, maybe we're starting to learn how to navigate it, but I think a lot of independent filmmakers try to avoid cell phones, kind of like the plague. So that kind of seemed like something we wanted to do anyway. And by just like narrowing the focus onto this one corner, right, it kind of just blocks the rest of the world out, and it can really be anywhere. And right, we have that text at the beginning that says somewhere fairly recently in New York City, right? So it's this vague, like we're in New York, but that's all we know. We don't know necessarily when. And I guess really it's like that the Obama lady joke is really kind of the only thing that I think places the film in any sort of realistic time space.
Yeah, with with all this visual information that is sort of existing in the space that the character was existing in, this cramped camper, with Christmas lights strewn, and just the colors and the atmosphere of a traditional Christmas ambiance in America and Brooklyn in particular. Just the colors and the textures, the snow on the trees, the breath that you can see in front of people's mouths, and um, just the wood, even like the wood that the trees are leaning against. There's just so much to smell and sense about this set, and it wasn't a set like we talked about. It was a real stand. So it was really. it was very easy to get into the mood of it, to go along with the character's plight was, yeah, it was very intuitive, which was, yeah, very, very helpful as an actor who's not really an actor who, um, I'm not trained to be able to pretend and fake in all kind of contexts and environments. So this was very helpful for me to just exist in this camper and feel cold and feel you know tired by the night and just my eyes were con my eyes were being exposed to the same things that the characters were being exposed to 360 degrees.
Well, I think talking about the atmosphere of it, this is a good opportunity to talk about the look. You've got cinematography here from Sean Price Williams. It looks beautiful, particularly like, that kind of triangular bokeh effect on the Christmas lights in the background. And combined with all these like amazing looks of longing from you, Kentucker. Tell us about that relationship with Sean and the development of the look.
So my relationship with Sean, I met Sean and started working with Sean in making documentaries, nonfiction work when he was kind of transitioning out of being at Kim's in New York City in I guess the late 2000s, mid to late 2000s, and we worked in documentaries. And when it came time to, I mean, basically the first time I pitched this film to Sean, he just like, it was so strange to him that I think he immediately was like, yeah, like, of course I'll do this. This sounds weird and awesome. And I haven't heard this before. And so he kind of was in from day one as I wrote the script and as I thought about it and as I prepped it. And the year before, either 1 or 2 years before, either the first or second year of the tree stand, Sean came out. We did some camera tests. And we didn't know we wanted to shoot on film yet. So we shot on mini DV, we shot on a 5D, we shot on like a Panasonic P2 HD camera, and we shot some 16 and regular 16, not super 16. And we just didn't know how it was going to look. There's just all these pockets of light and dark and shadows and the colors of the lights and LED versus tungsten and all these kind of things that were going on. And we looked at the footage afterwards, and we were kind of just blown away by the 16. And at the time, digital just really couldn't hold up in like low light and challenging light conditions. And the digital stuff just did not look interesting at all. And what was also clear from the digital stuff is we knew that it would take a lot of work to make it look good, whereas he just flipped that switch on the 16, and because of the kind of the natural environment and the lights, and it just immediately popped. And the second we saw it, we were like, well, that's the answer, right? We got to shoot on film, even if it's half the budget.
Amazing. Yeah, seeing his name on there, and like when you kind of scroll through the thanks in the end credits as well, it does feel like this film is like connects a real web of New York indie artists at the time, who are kind of connected in major or minor ways in lots of different ways. I'd love for you to kind of jump back a decade and tell us a bit more about the kind of wider filmmaking scene at the time. Obviously, Kentucky, you're making your own stuff there as a director as well as in front of the camera as well.
Well, we were all very young and hungry, and it, I think it was an interesting and exciting time in indie filmmaking in America. I think there was a feeling of hope and promise and building towards something. People were seemingly making successful movies that would, that would launch their careers sort of within a year or two, and you would have people who that would start to surface, like Safdie brothers or Greta Gerwig or Lena Dunham, and there was a lot of people that it felt like were kind of exploding in the moment. And I don't think that that's necessarily what Charlie was looking for or I was looking for, but I felt like just by proximity's sake, it was a feeling of like this is a worthwhile, this is something that's exciting for us, and I think some portion of the movie going world. And this was coming off the heels of what people called mumblecore, um, which felt like it made a little bit of created a little stir in New York and a little bit outside of that, which we were tangentially related to, and so it felt promising, but I can't tell if that was of a just because we were younger and you know now it feels like it's a little deflated because we're older, but it definitely felt like there was a lot of connective tissue and spider webs of all these people working together. And like Eleanor was, she's the casting person on this, but she was, she worked heavily with the Safdie brothers, um and Sean obviously shot the early Safdie movies, um and it just felt like there was a lot of connective tissue that was interesting and fun.
I want to ask about the film as a Christmas movie, which seems like a bit of a stupid thing to say. Like, did you consider this cultural idea of making a Christmas movie and what that means?
The job itself is what immediately drew me to the idea. Just living in New York and seeing every December people living in their vans and trailers, selling trees 24 hours a day, not closing. But once I kind of sat down and thought about it, I was then kind of forced to now think about this. Like, yes, there's a genre, right? Like, you can't make a movie about Christmas without acknowledging that there's a genre, right? When we first went on Amazon, a lot of the reviews were like, 1 star, this is not a Christmas movie. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, what, I was supposed to do something that I didn't do. I'm sorry I broke this rule I didn't know about, where like a Christmas movie had to be this one thing. So I really was excited to kind of do that, to make something that was not what people normally expect of that genre.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of indie Christmas movies that are are sort of defined by their low budgetness and their raw quality and their intimacy as far as the production. Um, they're oftentimes either sweeping in large scale productions or um, comedies starring, Hollywood. Yeah, the Hollywood crowd, and I feel like there's definitely a dearth of homemade Christmas movies. But I think that this film kind of toes that line of it's not really a Christmas movie in that it's I think it's darker and more naturalistic than a lot of Christmas movies, but it does have maybe more of a conventional arc undercurrent of sort of going from a place of you know like just depression, to put it broadly, into a place of being affirmed in some way. Um, you know, I think that I think that sort of light coming into somebody's eyes and it is could be considered a trope in the Christmas genre. So I think it is somewhat of a Christmas movie in that way. Um, but it is a very dark movie, especially the first half. There's really no joy, and I think it works uh, cinematically because I think there's such a juxtaposition of the mirth and the cheer and the excitement of people passing the stand and their you know just their casual remarks on how festive it feels and the smells and everyone just loves the traditions, and then there's this guy at the center who is really on really downbeat, very depressed and very lethargic and exhausted, and he can't shake the cold, and he's just in this cramped space and it's noisy and he's getting over this breakup, and so that there's this man who's at the center of all of this Christmas cheer, and he's a very he sticks out very intensely from uh that ambiance, that atmosphere.
I want to talk about Hannah Gross because her performance in here is brilliant, and I think just from the first time that you see her. There's this amazing presence, and this I think goes to the was the look of it. I suppose the first time you see her, she's collapsed on a bench, but it's more like when you see her face, the in the same way that Kentucker, I think, particularly in the light that Sean kind of brings to the film, like in the way that you might deploy just a wide-eyed look or a smile, not really saying anything. I think the two of you managed to kind of really form that connection quite solidly. What was it like working with her, and what did you find from her performance helped you?
Yeah, she's great. Think she has just a real luminous quality, and I think she has just I don't know. It's just was it whatever I was doing, she was doing. She was the counterpoint. She was the light. She was the yeah. She was the smooth. I was the rough, and I think just the juxtaposition of us together felt um you know it felt right to me because her function in the film, if there is a clear one, is just to sort of lighten the film up and across the film, and I feel like she lightens the entire film up, and not only in sort of not only in like a direct light kind of way, it just fills the frame. Just the way she looks in that film, the way she carries herself, and her just like yeah, her youth and wide-eyed qualities was really injected the film with what needed to happen, and it was just yeah, I didn't know her beforehand, and she yeah, we like I said, we did a audition test read, and it felt really good to me, and thankfully it felt good to Charlie and the casting director, and that just extended to the film. But it was a joy to work with her, and she was yeah, going back and watching it recently, I think she really makes the movie, and it's just a joy to watch her, and yeah, I really think that she if she wasn't in the film, it would have it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was I'd seen her. I think it was in one of Matt Porterfield's features. I'm forgetting the name that I'd seen her in, and just yeah, I don't know. It just she jumped out to me after seeing that. Just felt like it was kind of like the character I'd been imagining. I do want to give a special props to not only is she a wonderful actor, she brought that jacket herself, and I feel like that jacket is so much of that character. So I'm super appreciative there. And I'm not sure she gets the credit due for that pick, but she joked it was her mobster wife coat, but we loved it.
It's a great coat. I wonder, Kentucker, as a director yourself. I mean, most recently, at least in the UK, Strawberry Mansion, released by our friends at Bulldog. Great film. What lessons did you take away from Charlie from this one, do you think?
I think I was in a moment of kind of flailing when I right before I acted in Christmas Again, and I think I was I'd always wanted to do indie films, but I think I had said what I wanted to say in my 20s, and I didn't know what I wanted to say in my 30s yet. And I think this film gave me confidence, I think it was made in such an understated way that I feel like it validated what I was most attracted to indie film initially. How, I never wanted to make big action movies, and so Christmas Again definitely validated that part of my artistic life. I did go on to kind of go in the opposite direction with Strawberry Mansion, but I think there was you know, still trying to find that smallness and that texture and that nuance that I think Christmas Again is really defined by, and just pinpoint what it is that's the most essential about a particular scene, and not over not overstate it, not overcomplicate it, just sort of trust the inherent watchability or truth of a scene. And I think Charlie did an amazing job of staying out of the way in a lot of these time in a lot of these scenes. And I think that was partially because we were in such close quarters filming in this camper, but also think he just had a real faith in his vision and his script, um, to sort of like he wrote the script, he cultivated the story, he lived the story, and then he hired the people that he trusted to act it out, and he didn't overthink it. And I think not overthinking something that you believe intensely is a very desirable trait for a filmmaker, for anybody doing a job in the artistic world. I think is just believe it, believe it, don't overthink it. Yeah, I think that was something I brought to my 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 future uh, directorial efforts, although it's not something that you can really do. I've found it, the bigger the movies that we're trying to sort of keep expanding our budgets, and I think that you're sort of forced into this situation where you're like the name of the game is to second guess yourself and to have to prove yourself at every moment and have people tear your vision down and say like this is not good enough, this is not what anybody will be interested in, and you're like, oh, we've already proved this.
Feel like that's a very Christmas again answer where it had like this lovely kind of warm sentiment, but then we have to shade it with some melancholy there. But then we'll bring it back. And I love that you mentioned Charlie living this role. So yesterday I worked some shoe leather and I went down to my local Christmas tree guy and I said, I'm doing this interview tomorrow night. I want you to give me some stuff that only a real Christmas tree guy is going to know. And so I wanted to run by some of his thoughts as in a kind of quick fire Christmas tree expert test. So the first thing that he said was everyone comes in and says, listen, I've got a really kind of specific, crazy request that I'm hoping you guys can help me out with. I need a tall and skinny tree.
Yeah, I mean, we, I'm sure London's the same as New York. People don't have a lot of apartment space, right? So everybody wants something that's narrow because it doesn't take up as much space. In Brooklyn, we didn't. I don't feel like we did a ton of tall trees, although people do have some really tall ceilings around there. Um, our most popular was probably 5 feet.
Oh wow. Okay, that's kind of mid-range, I think here. I think yeah. And the other thing that you pointed out is something you pointed out already as well, that when you do this job year in, year out, you form connections with people. And so I've been going to this guy for 5 years. So he's seen me the year that I got a dog, the years with the dog, the year that my wife was pregnant, the year that the baby was a few months old, and then this year the baby's 18 months old. And so he's kind of seen a big spectrum of my life in these kind of amazing 12-month increments. And it's just and only when he kind of threw it back at me like that, I realized this is such a unique way of viewing the world and interacting with people.
But I will say, while we're on the topic of real Christmas tree stands, the prices have skyrocketed. This is about a 5 footer right here, $130. Back in 10 years ago, it was like we were selling them for like $60, $65,
Yeah, about 12, 13 a foot at the
and
time.
10 doubles in price, 10 years.
There was a bit of controversy in my requests last night when I said that the suggestion in the film was to add hot water first and then top it up with lukewarm water throughout, and that didn't go down well. And what the suggestions were, there were some other crazy suggestions, and I don't know how you'd feel about these. Was some people put lemonade.
We hear Sprite sometimes, and oftentimes it's just variations of basically sugar and water. And the only reason that we did the hot thing is like oftentimes the trees are literally frozen. So like if it's negative 20, if it's negative, the tree is literally like all the moisture in the trunk is frozen.
Didn't consider that. That's the difference between New York and London, I think.
But if it's warm out, you don't need to do that.
The other mad one that he said was that people crush an aspirin and put that in the water.
Interesting thing about aspirin is some of the ingredients in aspirin actually come from the tips of Sitka spruce trees. Right. So it's almost like you're giving the aspirin back to the tree.
Every year, kids, remember to take your aspirin and put it under the tree. That's just how the original trees would have wanted it. All right. Well, I think that that's a nice Christmas note to end this conversation on. It's been lovely to chat with you guys. I mean, it's great to have Christmas again back in UK cinemas.
I hope to be back in the UK some soon time. I love it over there.
We'd love to have you. Well, thank you for chatting with us, Kentucky. Thank you for chatting with us, Charlie. It's been a pleasure. Hope you both have a wonderful Christmas.
Thank you, Jake. You too. Appreciate it.